Welcome to the Recovery Ape Radio Show. I'm the Recovery Ape, Donnie Martinez. We're here on this snowy day. Hopefully everybody's in their house listening to the Recovery Ape and not out on the roads today, right?
Actually, when I came in, it really wasn't too bad.
It wasn't?
No.
I
was kind of surprised it wasn't slick.
I went and did some jiu-jitsu at 6 a.m. this morning, so I was out there at 5-something, and the roads were fine even then when it was cold.
Yeah. Well, thanks to our folks out there, snowplows, sand trucks.
Yeah, our
All getting
hard-working
done, yeah.
municipality getting things done.
Yeah.
So we're here with the Recovery Ape Radio Show, maybe the only fully dedicated psychedelic radio show in the nation, right?
We
it's
are.
actually
Just
on the
just
public
say it.
airways. I don't think anybody else is doing this. And I think we're also the most watched local radio show, right?
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying by that?
Yeah.
Because we do have a nice following out there on Facebook.
Yeah.
So I wanted to start off by talking about this election we just had. And we tend to steer away from politics because it's very divisive these days. And I know some people were overjoyed with how it went, and other people think it's the end of the world. And both sides were saying if their person lost, it was the end of the world. But the only reason why I want to touch upon it is because Robert F. Kennedy, by default, is going to be a part of this administration. And he put out a post that I want to touch on. And he says, the FDA's war on public health is about to end. This includes its aggressive suppression of psychedelics, peptides, stem cells, raw milk, hyperbaric therapies, chelating compounds, ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, vitamins, clean food, sunshine, exercise, nutraceuticals, and anything else that advances human health and can't be patented by pharma. If you work for the FDA and are part of the corrupt system, I have two messages for you. One, preserve your records, and two, pack your bags. How encouraging is that? The first thing that he mentions is psychedelics. That's really important to us. We want to make sure this messaging and the availability of this medicine, this whole class of medicines, can get out to the people, especially when we consider where this all started. This all started in Colorado because we wanted to bring relief to veterans, especially combat veterans that were coming back home, and we just haven't done a very good job helping people transition back into the civilian life. We've done a horrible job of that. Through the VA mechanisms, a lot of people just aren't happy with some of those mechanisms. So we're trying to give different options now. And Colorado voted in Prop 122 to make these psychedelics available. And we concentrate a lot on the DMT and psilocybin side of things. And today I have with me Clayton Peterson. How you doing today, sir?
Good, man. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for coming down.
Yeah.
Through the treachery of the snow on 115. Did you come down from Woodland Park, Springs area?
The Springs around Broadmoor.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wasn't bad for you either, though, huh?
Nah, 4-wheel drive. Just keep her straight, keep her between the lines, and don't be stupid.
There we go.
There's the key right there.
Yeah. Don't be stupid. So I wanted to touch upon your military career.
Yeah.
I want you to explain that to the people because I'm really naive when it comes to the structure of that.
Okay.
And you had a long,
22 years.
very solid career in the military. And you did some things that tend to import some extra trauma upon people with your particular type of job that you were doing. So if you could take us through that, what exactly you did job-wise, please explain that to the people out there.
Yeah, I first joined the Marine Corps in June of 97, right out of high school. I think I graduated June 12th, and I was standing on the yellow footprints at MCRD San Diego June 22nd. Did 4 years as an infantryman in the Marines, got out around June of 2001, and 9/11 happened shortly after that. I got recalled back to active duty and sent to Marine Corps Base Hawaii to augment a military police unit while my infantry unit went to war, for the invasion of Iraq. So I kind of had that survivor's guilt starting there. Like, I had friends that were in the front lines. That's what I trained. That's what I slept in the dirt for 4 years to fight the big bad enemy of the Iraqi army and all that stuff. And then here I am on the sidelines with a military police unit. I did that for 2 years, and then got out and spent the next 2 years just really doing absolutely nothing in Southern California, riding BMX, surfing. I worked as a pool boy, and just came to this point that living in SoCal was hard, and I found a way out by going back in the military. So I went into the Army recruiter, and I was like, a former Marine, former infantry, what can I do? And they're like, oh, we can make you an 11 Bravo, have you on the front lines. I was like, no, I've done that. I need something that's going to give me a career path outside when I'm done. And he's like, well, there's this MOS 68 whiskey, which is healthcare specialist.
All right.
And you get your EMT out of it and all that stuff. And I was like, all right, well, healthcare, that's a good job. So I went home and I ruminated on it. I looked up 68 whiskey. I think it was 91 Bravo. It hadn't made the switch to 68 whiskey yet. They did an MOS switch. So I looked up healthcare specialist, and thing that came up was Fort Sam Houston, home of the combat medic. So I called that recruiter up. I'm like, is this MOS combat medic? Oh, well, we don't call it that anymore. It's healthcare specialist because you're not necessarily going to be a medic in a combat environment. And I was like, well, I'll do that. And just a chance to be a medic on the front lines, to do my job as a medic. So signed a contract, Fort Sam Houston. I was in the prior service platoon, went through all of I think it was 91 Whiskey or 91 Bravo training to be a medic then. Then they changed the whole curriculum and added in TCCC, which is Tactical Combat Casualty Care, which is some whiz-bang stuff right on the battlefield, on the X, so to speak, when your patient's in that critical wounding state. So I did the bridge course for that, got assigned as a medic to a military police unit, and at Fort Bragg, home of the airborne, all that stuff. Quickly went off to Iraq, did what we thought was going to be a 12-month tour from, I think, late 06 into 07. And about 3 months in, got told we were staying for 15 months because of the surge. So did a 15-month tour. I think I did my pre-deployment leave within that first 3 months because we were shorthanded on medics. So before we got heavy into our operational rotation and wanted all the medics to go on their mid-tour leave. And I came back and had almost a year straight in combat, doing ground patrols, vehicle patrols, and doing very unmedic stuff. Being a former infantryman in the Marines, I gunned a 50 cal, I gunned a Mark 19, I gunned a 240, drove Humvees, drove lead truck, did everything that a military police officer would do, but in the guise of quote-unquote non-combatant medic. Saw some crazy stuff, saw the absolute worst humanity has to offer. During that 15 months, mass graves, beheadings, torture, victims of torture, just wild, crazy stuff that you would never see in the stateside. I was asked recently what one of my craziest experiences from the military, from my deployment, that one deployment in Iraq. It has nothing to do with combat or anything like that, but this truck carrying gasoline, high-centered on a median on the main north-south route out of Baghdad, ruptured the side of this big tanker, and there was a ankle-deep river of gasoline that we were driving through.
Oof.
And the whole time I was like, we're done. Like we're all trying to put our shirts over because we were breathing in the fumes. The fumes, you could see the fumes. It was a hot summer day. And I was like, this is some Final Destination stuff. Yeah. Somewhere there's a crow that's picking up a cigarette butt that a guy just flipped out a window, and that crow's going to drop over, and everyone in this quarter mile is just going to be a fireball. And somehow we made it through. Me and my squad leader were out in front of the trucks with our weapons out, directing traffic, trying to get vehicles out of our way. And guys are like, don't shoot, and going boom, boom. We're like, no crap, dude.
Right.
No crap.
We understand.
Yeah, I can't imagine where your mind would go to in that situation.
Yeah, me and my squad leader afterwards got real bad chemical burns on our feet from our feet being soaked in gasoline, because that was right at the start of our 12-hour patrol. So we
Ooh.
did that, then went and stayed in sector for 12 hours. And, you know, we went to an Iraqi police station, tried to wash our socks and our boots and our feet off at this Iraqi police station, but still got some chemical burns from that. So that's that one instance. I don't think you'd ever see that in the States because of, you know, our hazmat regulations and all that stuff. You just wouldn't see that. So then I think I stayed with that. I re-enlisted while in Iraq to be a conventional Army flight medic. So got back from our deployment, went to flight medic school at Fort Rucker, Alabama, and was on orders to go down to Central America as a flight medic supporting Southcom and 1st of the 228th Aviation Regiment as a flight medic. While I was down there, I interacted with some individuals from a Special Operations Aviation Unit called the 160th SOAR, SOAR being an acronym for Special Operations Aviation Regiment, the Night Stalkers, a very prestigious unit, the helicopters from the movie Black Hawk Down, all of that.
Gotcha.
And I put in a packet to be a medic in the 160th. I was already a mid-grade NCO as an E5, a sergeant, getting close to pinning on staff sergeant, and the 160th said, no, we need someone a little bit junior that's not already a non-commissioned officer, because we have to put you into a non-commissioned officer slot, blah, blah, blah. So I didn't take no for an answer. I was heading up a fight club that we had down there in Central America. We had some jiu-jitsu guys, Muay Thai guys, kickboxers, and had a lot of SF, like special forces guys that were coming into our training. And, you know, I beat those guys up because they come in, like, look at me, 150-pound guy, and I'm tapping them out, and like, man, you got to get into special operations. It's like, oh, I tried.
So hold that thought there, because we're going to go to a break, and that's a good transition point right there.
Okay.
So we're going to take it to a break and come back right there.
Sweet.
Nice job.
Yeah.
Real good job. Thank you. So we stay live in between
Yeah.
the breaks. So we're on a radio
Okay.
break right now. But we're live on Facebook for everybody out there right now. What's
I
up,
don't have a
y'all?
Facebook. I mean, I do, but I have no friends.
Eddie's saying hello all. We got my boy AJ Donovan watching. So we got some good people on there today. This is gonna be a great story. Thank you for sharing so much
Yeah.
going into that. Yeah. Yeah, you've seen some stuff.
Yeah, that 2 years in Central America, even though it was a non-combat tour, like, I helped out with counter-narco-terrorism stuff, worked with the DEA as their flight medic, did some non-combatant evacuations, some humanitarian aid, was in a total catastrophic loss of a helicopter crash. That's where all my back injuries started, all my back pain started then. Yeah, it was interesting.
Yeah.
You know, almost had to do a water landing in a Black Hawk helicopter because we had a high-speed shaft failure in our number one engine, and we were low on fuel, and we just basically used the glide path to make it to the threshold of the runway at Sotocano Airport in Honduras. And yeah, there was some interesting.
Is prior to that threshold a cliff? Or
The ocean.
Water?
Yeah.
Just the ocean?
Yeah, the ocean.
Oh, ooh. Yeah, there's some moments you had to see where, beyond nail biting, right?
Yep.
Beyond the pucker factor. Just standing in all that gasoline, thinking.
Oh, it was
at any
insane.
moment,
It
this
was
is just gonna
no. I was like, yep, this is it. I've had like 4 or 5 of those. Yep, this is it. Moments in my life.
Yeah.
That was one of them, and that Class A mishap, that total loss of the helicopter, was another one. And I was the left side. I was the flight medic on the.
Hey, here we go. Sorry.
Welcome back to the Recovery Ape Radio Show, the nation's only psychedelic committed radio show anywhere, right? We were talking
Absolutely.
about that earlier, right? We have to
Yeah.
be. We have to be. We're going to claim that.
At least
until
within our listening area.
somebody tells us different. We're going to
Exactly.
make that
There we
claim.
go.
I'm here with Clayton Peterson. Thank you for coming down. And he was telling us about his military career.
Yep.
And you were talking about transitioning down to South America.
Central America.
Honduras.
Yep.
Honduras. And we were just talking about some of your jiu-jitsu experience.
Yep.
And doing some fight training down there, huh?
Yeah, and so these SF guys, these Green Berets, were like, man, you should come into the community. And I was like, well, I tried, got denied. And I tried one other time, and my command basically circular filed my request to go to the Special Operations Medic course. And this lieutenant colonel's like, I'll sign your paperwork, I'll send it up. So
nice.
He did, and I kind of subverted the system. I've always been kind of anti-authoritarian and pushed the limits of what the system has to offer, especially in the conventional force. I got in quite a bit of trouble. Didn't lose rank or anything, but I've gotten reprimanded severely for doing my own thing in Iraq, and I saved lives, but I did my own thing, kind of. But whatever. But so yeah, I get into the Special Operations community, go back to Fort Bragg, did Special Operations Medic course, and I think I got promoted to Staff Sergeant E6 right when I got to that course. And I realized that I was a very small fish in a small pond of extremely talented individuals. And I really had to step, because the conventional Army versus the Marine Corps is a cakewalk. Gotcha. Conventional force is just a cakewalk in the Army. If you can do good PT and yes sir, no sir, yes sergeant, no sergeant, fit the bill for the most part, you can get whatever you want. But in that Special Forces pipeline, there's talented individuals. I had one of my instructors in phase 1 of the Special Operations Medic course was a MAC VSOG medic from Vietnam era. It's like the origins of Delta Force.
Oh wow.
And he's one of the pioneers of Special Operations medicine, and he was one of my instructors. Had a former NASA rocket scientist turned Navy SEAL as one of my instructors. And then other students are the creme de la creme of potential special operators from all walks of life.
That's something a lot of people don't realize, is the cognitive ability and the intelligence of people that are operating in that zone. Right?
So
I've met a few of them, and they're super intelligent.
I recently had a conversation, kind of a sidebar conversation. I have a signal group of guys from my unit that we still kind of keep in touch. And another medic of mine, we were kind of having a conversation that, there's the autism spectrum is so broad now that there's some neurodivergency to make a special operator of any sort. Like if you go outside the wire in the special operations community, the amount of information you have to retain in your head, the level of professionalism you have to maintain, the no fail, 100% task oriented, no fail, the amount of stuff you carry on your plate on a daily basis, it spans, like in my unit, I didn't have a medical intelligence officer. I didn't have medical supply. I was everything. I was one guy. I had to procure my own supplies, do my own medical intel, do my own combat intel of just everything. Like we were a one-man wrecking show. I think we tried to get our title as strategic medical operator instead of 160th Special Operations Flight Paramedic. Because we did everything. We were the strategic level, because there's different levels of organization and command structure and operational structure throughout the military. We're at the strategic level of like the task force level. I would brief task force, like a whole task force on the Aerovac mission plan. If any civilian casualty, partner casualty, Eagle down casualty, I had to go make sure all of our clinics in that area, in that region we were doing an operation, were open and able to receive patients. That night we were doing that tier 1 mission. On a training mission in Thailand, I had to go on my own, plan my own trip to Thailand, plan my own route, and go by myself in Thailand and go to all these hospitals and do these site surveys. Korea, by myself, just alone E6, alone staff sergeant in the Army that in the Army gets their hand held everywhere they go in a conventional force, and I'm out there by myself, alone and unafraid, in all of these countries.
That's a lot to take on.
Yes.
For any individual. For a team to take that on would be a lot to take on.
Yes. And I still, and while I was, so long story short, I made it through the special operations medic course without being my own worst enemy a lot of times. I failed some critical tasks, but I was able to convince them to let me stay in. And I feel that in like, if there's a percentile of special operations medic, I'm probably in like that lower 1/3 percentile, you know, like, what do you call the doctor that got D's all through med school?
Right.
He's still a doctor.
Still a
I'm
doctor,
that
right?
D. I'm that like high C or that low C, high D special operations medic. And I say that because I have worked with the best of, and that's big shoes to fill. Whenever you have one of the best medics in the regiment going out of country and you're backfilling them in country, and only the medic is changing out, and that whole SEAL Team 6, Delta Force, Ranger Battalion task force is still there, and the only element that changed is you.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah, and
Wow.
there's an 8-hour handover, if that, because like a flight will come in, I'll get off, I'll meet the guy, we'll have a couple hours to sit and talk, we'll sign all of our narcotics over, count all of our ammo. And then he's on that same plane taking off 5-6 hours later.
So not even enough time to say, here's how I do the job, here's the familiar stuff around here.
By time
boom.
By time I got into the special operations community, it was in the 2012 timeframe. So we've already been doing these night tier 1 missions for a long time. So it's down to an executive level science. Like, these guys are white collar level killers.
Yep.
And missions, there's a template for every mission. And you have all your contingency plans built into that template. And if X doesn't happen on objective, then you switch and go to Y or A, or you have all these different contingencies built in. So basically, a lot of the times I fought the firefights in the helicopter, listening on the headsets, listening into the battle, and then real time with a laptop, watching a laptop on my lap of the drone overhead, providing overhead surveillance, watching the combat in real time. So I've seen friends and colleagues and Afghan local nationals, helpers get hurt on camera. And then knowing that I'm got to set that laptop down and start prepping my med equipment, because we're coming in on a hot HLZ to pick dudes up and get them out. And then we go run them to a hospital, drop them off, and we go right back in the fight. Like, it's there's guys that did way more intense stuff than I did. But I had my small part. But the medics that came before me that were during the invasion, during the first troops in Afghanistan, did some wild stuff. Wild. That's what special operations is known for.
Yeah, I'd be careful not to minimize that personally, because the intensity of what you just described to me is on a level I can't imagine. I've never experienced anything like that, and thank you for being willing to take that on.
Yeah,
that's a huge intensity. I don't think many people could make it through that in any way, shape, and form, and it got to you after a while, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I want to talk about next, because we're going to go ahead and go to a break, and we're going to talk about how that intensity can get to you after a while, and where it got you to, and how you were able to get over that. So let's take a break, Tay, and then we're going to come back to that. Yeah, I just can't. I have no reference points to even start fathoming what any of that could be like. So
yeah, that's
massive. Thank you for doing
like
that.
One of the memories I have is going into a hot HLZ. I think I was working with the Brits, like SAS, SBS guys. Pretty high value mission, and some of their guys got hurt pretty bad. Like they got fragged in a small room. So 2 Brits and 2 Afghans got fragged and got shot up pretty bad. And I remember standing in the companionway of the MH-47 as we're going in with my nods on, knowing I'm going to get off the helicopter, go find these guys, and the helicopter's potentially going to leave me behind if they start taking too many rounds.
Yeah.
And I couldn't help but think that under night vision how beautiful this terrain looked. Just because I'm a mountain biker, and I was like, man, these mountains. But I'm like, I'm about to be in it, and that was the ramp came down. I think we took a couple hundred rounds of small arms fire on our way in, And then ramp came down, I jumped off, helicopter took off, and I helped finish packaging these guys up. And we got them back on the helicopter landed again after we suppressed that threat, and took off, and 10-minute fly to Bagram, had them all offloaded. All four service members survived.
Nice work.
Yeah.
Got them all out successfully.
By that deployment in Iraq, my conventional force deployment, I probably lost more than I saved.
Yeah.
Because special operations, it's just down to a science. Like everything is just down to an executive level science. And conventional force, sometimes we're just out there left on our own vices. You know, we had a guy try to clock himself off with a suicide vest, and he's a human. I tried to save him, and he ended up dying. And my platoon wanted to give me a medal for killing a bad guy.
Oh,
My platoon commander's like, "Hey Doc, thanks for killing that guy."
So you're split between these two mentalities.
Yep.
My job is to take care of this human being no matter what.
Yeah, I think that's a part of me that had to be suppressed in the military, was the empathic side of me.
Yeah.
And I'm an empathic person. I'm that's why I wanted to become a medic, and I really found that out about myself when I became a medic. Because like I have a soft spot for people in need, and I had to go back and forth between compassion and then stone cold. Compassion, stone cold. You know, I think that's what makes medics is a hard job. Is we have to. A human life is a human life. Regardless, we could get into my beliefs now of why we were in Afghanistan and Iraq, and these people that we were fighting wouldn't have been hurt, you know, caught in a crossfire. These bad guys wouldn't have been killed if we weren't there in the first place.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah,
like why are we going after this 18-year-old kid? You know, this is 2014, that was a toddler when we invaded his country. All he knows is the U.S., and they used to call us vampires. They used to call us special operations guys vampires, because we'd go in at night and kill people and snatch people out of their houses. You know, like, you know.
Yeah,
like,
imagine being on the other side of that. The mentality that gives you, just disappear.
Yeah.
Ooh.
So that's what I struggle with now. Is especially like we were talking about before with the pull out of Afghanistan.
Yep.
You know.
Yeah, that would be hard, especially as an empathic individual, which is going to draw you into medical. And then being empathic, you tend to import more trauma, outside trauma from other people, along with the PTSD that you're naturally getting in that situation. Welcome back to the Recovery Ape Radio Show. I am the Recovery Ape, Donnie Martinez. I'm here with Clayton Peterson, retired combat military veteran, and you spent your career, almost all of it, in the medic side of it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And we were talking earlier about the amount of trauma that you import, the amount of trauma that you see, and that turns into some PTSD type situations, a lot of it. And being that you're empathic, the medics tend to be empathic people who get drawn into that job. And then as an empath, you kind of have this ability to import trauma that a lot of other people wouldn't.
Yeah.
So with that, you were able to do the job successfully for many years, but as you're doing that, you're importing this trauma and getting in these situations that cause some PTSD. Then you retired, you're over here stateside, and you kind of saw some of the fruits of your work dissolve at one point, right?
Yeah. So the lineage in special operations communities, you move up in rank, you take leadership positions. So I became a battalion senior medic within the special operations community, within 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment, as the training battalion senior medic. Okay. And we had it used to be a 5-week crash course flight paramedic program where we take a special operations medic fresh out of special operations medic school, a ranger medic, someone in the special operations community, make them a flight medic, and then send them off to get all of their progression and become combat ready. We turned it into a 10-week program with clinical rotations, more flight time, getting more comfortable within a helicopter. And that's so during that time, I was also doing a lot of downhill mountain biking and big into fighting. So I was getting these subconcussive TBIs that were affecting my ability to make split-second leadership decisions.
So traumatic brain injury.
Yes, and was causing me to have drastic emotional responses to my senior leadership.
Yep.
That we should have. I mean, I should have known at the time. I should have been cognizant, but I was in that 2 years I did at Fort Campbell was my worst time of my military career as a senior medic. High stress, not deploying, stateside deployments, going to New Mexico a lot, doing all this, but just in a point where I just wanted to be operational. I tried out for some other super swoopy organizations that there've been some podcasts about, and I made it through like 90% of the selection process, and then I had one hiccup, and I'm come back next time kind of thing. So I just did my 2 years as a special operations medic, a senior medic, and then I was involved in a incident out in town where someone pulled a gun on me, and I almost took this 22-year-old girl's life that pulled a gun on me with my concealed firearm.
Ouch.
And that really started to peel back some layers of me within my command. And I kindly requested to leave the regiment. And that's, as a medic, that's kind of unheard of unless you kind of promote yourself out of a job. I told my battalion my regimental senior medic that I want to leave. I don't feel like this is a good fit for me. I had 5 years left or 3 years left when I left. I can't do this until I retire. It's gonna kill me if I stay doing this, especially since the Army, with all of my TBIs and all of my injuries from helicopter crashes and everything, have deemed me not able to fly as a flight medic. How can I be a leader and expect my people under me to go do a high-risk job flying in the special operations aircraft if I can't do the job myself? That's leadership by example. If I can't be the example, why do it? So I found a cushy job as the senior medic for the military freefall school down in Yuma, Arizona. So skydiving every day. And we don't wear uniforms. The students wear uniforms. We wear like a mix of like military-ish attire.
That's a nice gig.
Kind of first name basis. It was a good last 3 years to transition out. And that's when I got into starting my nonprofit for mountain biking that I Ride It Out.
That's amazing that you did that.
Yeah. I used to have a way bigger ego than I do now. I still try to keep my ego in check, and I think my ego is what was the downfall of Ride It Out.
Yeah.
But there's other organizations, Dirt Therapy Project, Rogue Veteran Mountain Bike Alliance up in Colorado Springs, Soldiers on Single Track. I have a piece in starting all of those organizations.
That's amazing.
I helped those people get their thing going, and I'm friends with all of them. I just had to collapse Ride It Out during COVID, being in New Mexico with the crazy politics down there during COVID.
Yeah, New Mexico got real crazy.
Got real crazy. Yeah, that's where I was living in Angel Fire as a firefighter paramedic, and I had to get out. It was crazy.
So I want to fast forward for a minute, because we've created a nice picture of what you did and the great things you did for the country and the great things you did for people getting out, dealing with these things. And you continued to import some trauma with people along the way.
Of course.
In all the roles you were in. And it finally got to where it was just bearing down on you unbelievably. And that's kind of where we intersected, which was not too long ago.
Nope.
Right?
June, probably mid-June.
June of this year, right? So you had seen some things after that. You had mentioned the Afghanistan pullout that went sideways. You lost some people there. That really weighed on you. Yeah,
20 years of hard work. My friends dying, leaving voids back here in the States. Friends with kids, wives, families that never come back home. And here I'm single. I've never been married, no kids, just got a dog. And why am I still here? Why am I?
Yeah, that was the mentality, right? Yeah, that survivor's guilt of why am I here?
Big time survivor's guilt, man.
Was bearing on you so badly that the first time we had met was around the time you had come down to Ken's shop.
Yep.
and you were looking to give away your dog.
Yeah,
right?
I was gonna find someone that could take my dog, either take him to my dad's or drop him off at a shelter, give him to a friend, and I was gonna take my life.
Because that's the point right there. When you're making those plans,
Yeah.
suicidal ideation is really, really bad. But then when you get to the point, you got a solid plan. You had a solid plan on more than one occasion.
Yeah.
And then this was the time. And then you met Ken, and he introduced you to psychedelics. And it was kind of like a last moment Hail Mary. You happened to land in this one place that could offer you these tools. And you went ahead and did the DMT that day.
Yeah.
You were on the verge, when I leave here, I'm going to kill myself.
Yeah.
Right? And you went ahead and did the DMT that day. And then it set you on a whole new path. And then you went down to New Mexico, and you brought some psilocybin with you.
Yep.
And you witnessed this glorious sunset after not really being able to see the sunset for a while.
Yeah.
Like we were talking about earlier, that as adults we get in this default mode network.
Yeah, feedback
where we
loop.
Can't see the beauty of life anymore. And you took this psilocybin and you were talking about fishing, and you looked up and you saw the sunset for the first time in a while.
Yeah, it was.
And look at you smile, right? You remember it to this day. How awesome is that?
Yeah,
right?
it was. So yeah, my best friend Tim. Shout out to my friend Tim, Eagle Nest Fly Shack and Lodge down in Eagle Nest, New Mexico. Best fly fishing guide you'll ever have.
Nice.
Shameless plug. Yeah, I was fishing in the wilderness area up in northern New Mexico during this time, and was in a very dark place and had a physical altercation with a fellow fly fisherman that was just rubbing me the wrong way.
Yep.
And I called the VA, Veterans Crisis Line, and there's a whole backstory with that, but they said that the therapist I was seeing about a year previous wasn't good enough anymore. And I stayed on that crisis line, and the community care, I wouldn't hang up until they said that I could see this therapist again, and she's the one that recommended me to go down to Ken. And
let's give her a shout out too.
Yeah,
amazing.
Trinda, you're awesome.
Trinda Hasselkuss.
Yeah, you're awesome.
Be watching this.
You gotta fix this car
out there.
But yeah, so I always said that, psilocybin and psychedelics are always in my wheelhouse. I mean, I listen to Joe Rogan, I listen to all these esoteric podcasts and stuff. And I always said that I was never going to go find it. I was never going to start digging through the weeds. I wanted it to find me, because then it was the right time. And then Trinda gave me Ken's contact information, and I went down there, just did that. I think it was like just a microdose DMT experience, and that scared the bejeebus out of me.
Nice. That's what it takes sometimes, right?
Yeah. Like, I think I was like, I can't do this. And he's like, just relax. And and I didn't. The effects weren't immediate. It wasn't until like the next day, and I was like, man, like I really felt like I was dying when I was like, I felt like something was like trying to pull my heart out in that 10-15 minutes, and I was like, man, my problems are nothing.
Yeah.
Like this is nothing. And then my friend Tim's like, let's go do some psilocybin. And he had these chocolates, and Ken gave me some stuff to test out on. So yeah, we went out on this boat, did a 0.5 gram, and the whole time I'm like, man, I can't feel this, but yet I'm like fixated on the shimmering, like the sun shimmering on the water, and looking up at the clouds. And this big storm came in, and like 5-foot white cap waves, and we're still catching trout, like 20-inch trout, like nonstop. And he's like, right at the peak of the storm, he goes, I'm gonna go back to the truck and do another 0.5 gram. And I was like, sure, why not? So everyone is frantically getting off the lake because of the conditions. And here we tie off to the boat launch, run up, eat another 0.5 gram, go back out on his boat. And I remember he was backing the boat out. I would just held a hand salute to all the people on the dock looking at us like, what are these guys doing? Then we went back out, only people on Eagle Nest Lake. And Eagle Nest Lake is big. That storm blew through, glass. And then the storm was still there, sunset. And I just remember just looking at all, like there's a Sturgill Simpson song, All the Pretty Colors, just looking at all the pretty colors and colors I've never seen before. And I'm kind of an artist, and these are just palettes I've never seen before. And just seeing the beauty in the world, and like knowing that none of this is an accident. I don't know the the spiritual beliefs of most of your listeners, but it made me really realize that there's a creator. There's an architect. There's an architect to this. And how do these chemicals interact in our brains to create these euphorias, make us see things that they're in front of our face our whole lives, but we never see them. You know, like we were talking about kids, because I work with kids. The kids are just like on a psychedelic trip all the time. Everything's new, shiny colors. They're just goldfish. And that's what it's like on, you know, the serotonin release in your brain. And
there's value in getting back to that.
Yes.
Because we keep telling each other as adults we can't get back to that, right? We get locked into this BS of everyday.
Yeah, well, just society just crams you into this rigid path, and anyone that uses psychedelics or just even like nootropic mushrooms, just cordyceps, lion's mane, you start to like rewire stuff in your brain, and like even THC.
All right.
He just
stopped
good.
suddenly. Yeah.
Will.
When Tay calls for break, he hit us with the hard break that time. So let's go ahead with that big pause and just take it over to the break right now. And come right back.
Nonverbal. I'm big on nonverbal communication. In the military.
I was like, all right.
In the military,
got a mid sentence.
Yeah, they get that nonverbal cues in the military sometime.
Yeah, you know, one of the greatest side effects of psychedelics is people realize the beauty of the creator.
Yeah.
Or even just the presence of the creator after not realizing it.
I tried sharing, because I was drinking this energy drink called Magic Forest, and it's a cordyceps-based energy drink, all natural, blah, blah, blah. And I was at one of my schools drinking it, and I was like, I try to stay away from sugar. And she's like, well, what's that? And I was like, it's mushroom-based, it's zero sugar. She's like, oh, my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, I'd never do anything like that. I was like, why? Why wouldn't you want to do something that gets you more in touch with your creator? Why wouldn't you? Oh, my body's a temple, all this stuff. I'm like, yeah, but you take Ozempic.
Yeah.
You take all this. You've got all your vaccines. You take all of this stuff. Why not?
A bunch of synthetic stuff that they're willing to put into their bodies.
Yeah.
Right? As long as
heavy metals
Big Pharma or Big Food told us to put in our bodies, we do it.
You eat
but
McDonald's.
Lord forbid we put something in our bodies that the Lord put it here himself, right? These things go back to the dawn of man. It'd be argued that religion itself has used these substances since the dawn of man.
John Michael Allegro's book, The Sacred Mushroom and the Cross.
Yes, sir.
You know, I don't quite follow his path with it, but psychedelics the stories in the Bible. The Bible is a book of psychedelics, is a book of paranormal. Giants.
If Daniel and Ezekiel weren't tripping, I'd be really shocked. Right?
Acacia, the burning bush, the acacia bush, right?
Yes, has to be. I agree with that. Yeah, we've seen it since the dawn of man. People have been using these things, and then we lost the ability to freely use them for a while.
Yeah.
And now we're getting that back. Hopefully, we'll get it back nationally, thanks to Mr. Robert F. Kennedy. I hope we can at least get it back for everybody in the military.
Yeah.
I think we can open it up on the VA level and get some people some relief like what you saw. Welcome back to the Recovery Ape Radio Show. I'm the Recovery Ape, Donnie Martinez.
You let him finish it. We just killed him.
We did. We just put a big pause on that. We'll transition back into something here. Okay. So we're here with Clayton Peterson, and he's retired career military medic.
Yep.
Seen some stuff, just seeing some stuff that the rest of us haven't seen.
Yep.
We're talking about how you got to the point where you actually had suicidal plans.
Yeah, twice.
Once was derailed by a bear magically.
Yeah.
And the second time was derailed because you met up with my man Ken Reef, who now runs the Infinite Healing Apothecary and Wellness Center down on 621 Main Street.
Go there.
So if anybody else is starting to feel like the way you were feeling at that point, we need to get them down there and know that they can get that ultimate relief. Because you were at the point you were ready to do the deed. You were making plans. You were following up and moving into your plans of getting rid of the dog, handing the dog off. Now, if you were going to say now versus then, where is your level of suicidal ideation now?
Not zero.
Not zero, probably.
Not. I don't think it'll ever be zero. But what I have learned how to do with microdosing is control my darkness,
Yep.
control that werewolf that lives within me. Someone asked me over Halloween, like, what am I going to dress up as? I'm like, I'm just going to be myself because I'm the scariest thing I know.
That's dark, yeah.
But yeah, so there's a Stephen Wilson Jr. song called Werewolf, and people go listen to it because that's kind of, I used to just call it my darkness, but I could say it's a werewolf. But I've learned to recognize when that werewolf, when the full moon's out and it's starting to take over, how to stop it and focus on the good. Like, I journal my good days. I take pictures on my phone of my good days so I can go back and look at the good, journal the good. And that keeps that werewolf kind of at bay. You know, like Johnny Cash had a song, "The Beast in Me lives in a rusty cage." You know, but yeah, that it's caged. It's not caged well. There's just a little hasp on it. But I can know when it's shaking the cage and a hasp is coming loose. I could put my finger on it and just tell it no.
I think it's important to stress that you did the work, right? You mentioned having a counselor.
Yes.
And having to tell the VA, hey, this is my counselor. You can't get rid of this counselor thing.
Right.
So this gave you the ability to open up to some of those tools.
Yes.
The psychedelics gave you the ability to open up to the tools that your therapist was giving you.
Mm-hmm.
And now you can kind of step away a little bit.
Right.
Say, what is this? Okay, I'm ruminating. And whereas before your brain would get locked in those perseverating thoughts
Yes.
of suicide, right?
Yes. Self-destructive. I'm not good. You know, I personally ruined the relationship with the woman I should be with for the rest of my life, to the point where we don't talk anymore.
Uh-huh.
I let my werewolf ruin that. I let my darkness ruin that. That's going to be a guilt I'm going to have for my whole life. But that was just back in March. So yeah, I still think about it every day. Like, and she was mad that I didn't try psychedelics sooner, because it probably could have saved us.
Yeah.
Because
May have.
I didn't care about myself up until starting to microdose, because I loved riding, take 250 and go ride downhill in Angel Fire.
Ooh, yeah.
That's 250 or a half a gram. Some of my best days on the mountain bike.
I mean, you're gonna do that next
Yeah,
summer.
yeah.
I'm gonna hold you to that.
I call it microdosing. It's great.
Microdose. We're gonna do it.
Coined a new phrase.
That's all we're gonna roll with that.
But if she was mad that, why didn't I do that sooner? Because it probably could have saved us. Because I started taking care of myself, realizing I had other deficiencies. So I went to a men's health doctor. I got on testosterone. You know, I'm sleeping good. I've got energy. I'm high energy anyways, because I can't sit idle. Because if I sit idle, the werewolf takes over.
Yep.
So regardless of how tired I am, I get out, I do karate, I do Krav Maga, I ride mountain bikes, you know, I do snowboard, ski, backcountry ski, all this stuff, because it's the only way I know to keep those bad thoughts from taking over. I've not gotten surgeries I probably should have had since retiring, because I can't sit for 6 months and let a shoulder recover.
You know, to just rewind real quick to what you were just saying, I work in the recovery sphere,
Mhm.
right? Talking to people. I do peer recovery. I run a sober living house. Shout out to my boys at the Matt Dangles house for doing so well. And what you just listed, all the things you were talking about, are all the things we would highly recommend everybody in recovery to do.
Yeah.
Whether you're recovering from substance or from trauma, that list you just went through and the things you're working on yourself, that's why it's working.
Well,
You unlock the secret, and then the medicine gives you the ability to rewire your brain, and then you went out and did all the right things to rewire your brain. And that's what we have to stress, is it is kind of a magic pill, but it's not a magic standalone thing.
Yeah.
These psychedelics give you the ability to unlock these things so you can start working
yeah,
on
keys to the castle, like we were
Yeah,
saying.
the keys to the castle. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and a cool thing, so I used to get in these like negative feedback loops and try to find solace. I would, chocolate, sweets, stuff like that. Not good for me. I never really been into, I used to drink in my younger days, but something about the psilocybin has taken those cravings away from me. Like I can recognize it now, and then, go make a protein shake, a sweet tasting protein shake, rather than go grab a bag of Reese's and I'll eat a whole bag of Reese's. I stopped using THC pretty much cold turkey when I started using, because I needed THC to sleep. I wouldn't do it during the day. I'm not one of those wake and bake guys. I would, get other dimensionally out there and go to sleep. I get it. So I was having the visuals. I become really woo woo since around the June time frame, because I've been digging into more esoteric stuff and pre-Abrahamic religions. And there's this book called Many Lives, Many Masters about past life trauma. And I've had some visions of me shuffling a deck of cards and having glimpses of each one of those decks of cards as a life that I have lived. And I'll get a split second glimpse, and it feels real, being some greaser kid back in the 50s at a drive-in with the girls on roller skates and some old Buick or Chevy. I've real thoughts. I don't know, maybe because Outsiders was my favorite movie as a kid.
It's a great movie.
But I don't know if it was Ralph Macchio trying to tell me stay gold, pony boy. But
nice. I was hoping you'd hit the quote.
But it's just I've had these glimpses, and not to get crazy, but I think that my ex and I were together in a previous life, because we met in 2004, and it was instant connection, and I ruined it. I let my dark side ruin it. So I'm probably gonna spin my wheels for that for the rest of my life. But
that can be your inspiration to just keep creating the best you.
Yes.
The best you out there that's available. And then you can go that and share that with everybody. And the best version of you now can do the things that you were trying to do before, doing the bike stuff and doing the outreach that you were doing before. That I remember you expressing that was part of the reason why you made the realization that you just couldn't end your own life, because there was this fear that there would be this domino effect.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So I was out fly fishing by myself one day, and I felt the pain that my ex would feel if I were to take my own life. Because she told me one time, if you go, I go. That's a cascading effect.
Yeah.
When I had to write it out, I got donated $50,000 by retired NFL linebacker, Hall of Famer Brian Urlacher, to buy veterans mountain bikes. I was it for those guys.
Yeah.
And if I were to take my own life, or they were to find out that I took my own life, what would that do to them? Because some of those guys and girls were in a fragile state.
Absolutely.
And that mountain bike changed their life. I recently ran into a guy who I got a mountain bike. I got the mountain bike and all the gear, and I ran into him in Colorado Springs. Still has the same bike.
Well, thank you for all your work. We're going to have to end this thing because we're getting close to time. So that's a perfect way to end it right there.
Yeah.
To end the show is that the work you did and the work you've got coming up is going to be glorious. You almost fell to the dark side, myself almost fell to the dark side. And luckily we ran into Ken.
Yes.
And luckily we ran into this whole class of psychedelics to bring us out. And now we're here spreading the message to everybody else that there is relief no matter how bad you're doing. You come see us, you come talk to Clayton, find him on Instagram.
Ride, Hunt, Fish.
We'll get you hooked up. Say it once more.
All one word, Ride, Hunt, Fish.
All right. Well, thanks for putting it out there, Clayton, and thank you for sharing your amazing story. We'll see you all next week.
Thanks, man.
That was amazing. Thank you.
There you go.
Just amazing.